Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our council meeting of Tuesday, July 12th at 6 p.m. in council chambers of Beaumont City Hall. I will call the meeting to order at 6:03 in the evening. Begin with the land proclamation, as we always do. We are pleased to be here today on traditional territory of Treaty 6 in the Métis homeland. We acknowledge all those who share a deep connection with this land. The City of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and cultures of all of Canada's First Peoples, whether they be a First Nation, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich Canada's vibrant communities. We're all treaty people. The treaties bind us all. Next on our agenda, it will be the proclamations. And I only have two tonight, not six like a couple weeks ago. National Drowning Prevention Week, July 18th to 24th, 2022. Whereas the mission of Life Saving Society Canada is to prevent drowning throughout this great country, and even one drowning in Alberta is too many. And whereas most drownings are preventable in a water smart community and only through smart water education and a healthy respect for potential danger that any body of water can present, can we genuinely enjoy the beauty and recreation opportunities offered by these bodies of water. And whereas Life Saving Society urges Canadians and residents of Beaumont to supervise children who are in and around the water to refrain from drinking alcoholic beverages while participating in aquatic activities, and to be always aware of wearing a life jacket when boating. And whereas Life Saving Society of Canada has declared July 18th, 2022 as National Drowning Prevention Week to focus on the drowning problem and hundreds of lives that can be saved this year. Now, therefore, be resolved that I, Mayor Bill Dallin, do hereby proclaim July 18th to 24th, 2022 as National Drowning Prevention Week in the City of Beaumont, dated 12th of July, 2022. Noah Gregor Day, July 23rd, 2022. And whereas City of Beaumont has proclaimed July 23rd, 2022 as Noah Gregor Day. And whereas Noah moved to Beaumont in 2001 at the age of 2.5 and played minor hockey in Beaumont and Leduc. And whereas Noah was drafted into the WHL in 2013 by the Victoria Royals, he was then traded to the Moose Jaw Warriors. Victoria Royals, sorry. And whereas Noah was drafted in the NHL in 2016 by the San Jose Sharks and currently is an active player. And whereas most recently he was invited and selected to represent Canada in the World Hockey Junior Championships in Helsinki, Finland, where Canada won the silver medal. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Bill Dallin, do hereby proclaim July 23rd, 2022 as Noah Gregor Day in the City of Beaumont, Alberta, dated 12th of July, 2022. Thank you. Next item is to adopt the agenda. Administration, are there any changes to the agenda this evening? Ms. Winter.
Thank you, Mayor. Administration does not have any proposed amendments to the agenda this evening.
Thank you. Member of Council willing to move adoption of the agenda? Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the July 12th, 2022 council meeting agenda be adopted as presented.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Council, I'll ask you to vote on the motion. That carries unanimously. Ashley, how do you vote?
In favor.
Thank you. I should also mention Councillor Miller is away this evening, but is on Zoom call this evening from where she is. And thank you, Ashley, for joining us. Much appreciated. Thank you, Council. That vote count carries unanimously and the agenda is adopted. On the consent agenda, we have the following three items, which I'll outline to you now. That being 5A, regular council meeting of June 28th, 2022. 8A, meeting procedures bylaw 1014-22, first, second, and third readings. 8B, bylaw enforcement officer bylaw 1018-22, first, second, third reading. And 8C, bylaw 1020-22, business license amendment, first, second, and third reading. Is a member of council willing to move the consent agenda as presented? Councilor Munckhof-Swain.
I will move that the following agenda items that are displayed on the screen be approved without debate.
It's a good one. I like that one. We have to adopt that going forward. That's good, right? Yeah, I thought it was, but just to be on the safe side.
Try to get away with it, and it looks like I have.
I think we got that curveball across the plate. Thank you. Council, discussion on the motion? Seeing none, please vote accordingly on the consent agenda. That passed unanimously. Oh, sorry, Councilor Miller.
In favor, Mayor.
Thank you. That does pass unanimously. Thank you. Next item of business is open forum. Before we begin, we have three presenters this evening. Thank you all for coming. When you come to the desk, please introduce yourself very clearly, speaking to the mic directly so the people at home can hear you as we're recording this evening's meeting. And a point of order in that, in the previous meeting, we had some people coming in the audience who were in favor of a certain perspective, and there was a couple of yahoos and a couple of claps and a couple of good old boy things. Well, we can't do that in council, please. I'll let it go the first time, not thinking it was going to be a big deal, but it's just not procedural. So despite your enthusiasm, please curb it, as the saying goes. And I believe we have 3 presenters, and the first presenter is welcome to come to the podium or the desk and begin your presentation. It is 5 minutes long. We will allow for questions from council after your 5 minutes is over. So will the first presenter please join us at the desk? Oh, sorry. Ms. Winter.
Thank you, Mayor. Cody Fredrickson was the first presenter. However, I do not see him in the audience this evening. So our second presenter is Jeff Weatherspoon. So we'll move to our second.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks very much. Mr. Weatherspoon, please introduce yourself. We know who you are, but please introduce yourself accordingly. And
Jeff Weatherspoon, owner of Cheyenne Tree Farms and long-term resident of Beaumont. Thank you, Your Honor, councillors and administration, for hearing me out tonight. As the owner of Cheyenne Tree Farms, I'm directly affected by 20 lot line subdivisions. I have concerns of future crime in that area as the area matures. We actually have a slideshow. Pause the time. Okay, sorry. The promise of 0 lot line homes. We're promising affordability, lower maintenance costs, maximum living spaces. Affordability, many houses will be bought by income properties and owners may or may not have a vested interest in our community. Some of these slides I'll let you guys read on your own. I'm just going to try to get through them a little bit. I don't know where these slides are coming from. There we go. I'm sorry, this remote is not working. 0 lot lines are not less affordable. They just seem more affordable at the time. Supply and demand will dictate the pricing of housing, not the type of housing it is. Are the 0 lot line subdivisions safe? 0 lot line houses will have fires and the fires will spread quickly. I'm sorry, there's some presentation changes that weren't on my slides. Well, yeah, I'm looking at the way the slides are presented coming down and there's a small difference. So if we just go to slide number 5. So this slide was actually taken in Dancero Meadows. It's actually my pickup truck. We can see how narrow the street is. This is not a 2-way traffic street. There's concerns for, as vehicles are parked on the side, for children playing on the sides. If they scoot out, there's no maneuverability. Wintertime, as snow packs up, is it actually going to be a 2-way street? Have emergency services actually done a drive-by and a drive-through to see if they can actually access it during rush hour when there's 2-way traffic and vehicles parked on the side street? I think we need to do a summertime drive-by and a wintertime to make sure they still approve of such subdivisions. I'm not sure why the streets are narrower in these types of subdivisions than they are in regular areas. It should be the opposite. As there's more and more street parking, the street should actually be wider. The streets are so congested and narrow, it's only a matter of time before there's either some vehicles being sideswiped or 2-way traffic collision, or worse yet, pedestrian collisions. These slides are both taken in Beaumont as well. We're looking at the messiness behind in the back alleys. It's going to be a dumping spot for garbage. It's going to be an issue for garbage trucks and so forth going forward. Do they create enjoyable living? Is this a subdivision that any of you sitting in this room would want to live in? Would you want to have subdivisions like this right next door to your house? My answer is going to be no to this. They're going to be noisier and a lot busier. Do they address urban sprawl and climate change? Urban sprawl, possibly. Climate change, absolutely not. That is a misconception. So going into climate change, Tree canopies are critical for a community for multiple reasons. Aesthetically pleasing, removes pollutants from air, reduces noise. Most importantly, it's going to regulate your temperatures in the summertime and wintertime. It's going to cool your subdivisions with larger trees. In the wintertime, it's going to reduce the heat taken off your house by blocking the wind. Planting trees in these types of subdivisions are also going to be a problem, as you have multitudes of lines coming through the front yards. There's no room to actually get in and plant these trees. So how are you ever going to get a larger tree? And they're going to be looking for smaller trees that aren't going to actually shade and do what they're determined to do. You're not going to have backyard trees generally in these subdivisions, as we see that the lower end houses generally don't landscape the same way as larger single family living. So you're not going to have trees in the backyard to shade your backyard. So if we had a look at a standard block and then looked at a new block and you look at the coverage of your grass, your trees, your shrubs, all of those, we don't have the same coverage. So we're actually going the opposite way with climate change. We're actually increasing that problem. The other issue we're going to run into is water. So all these subdivisions are designed to take all the water off your roofs, your sidewalks, the roads, and it's all designed to take it away as quickly as possible, and it doesn't absorb into our ground. What that's going to do, that's going to lower our groundwater table. That's not going to only affect the existing trees we have growing in our boulevards that aren't being watered, but it's going to affect the agriculture areas around us. The cause and effect in the future with the whole water issue, it hasn't been seen yet. And I think we're heading down a slope that is going to be very, very dangerous. Alberta has less precipitation per annual than the Sahara Desert. Sahara Desert gets 19 inches per year. Alberta gets 17. It's the fact that we're frozen for 6 months a year. Otherwise, we would not have trees or grass or anything. So if we're not having that water around to actually evaporate, go back up in the clouds and come back down again, what is our future going to hold? We're trying to create a better future. We're doing just the opposite.
Thank you, Jeff. We'll have some extra time for you because of the difficulties you had with your slides. So thank you for your presentation and your thoughts on this matter. Open up to council. Any question you have for our presenter on his material he presented this evening? Seeing no questions. Oh, sorry. Councillor Tessier. Renee, you have the floor.
Thanks for coming in. Obviously, you know, the land use bylaws in and yeah, I don't know anyone that lives in zero lot lines either. I'm hoping to do some door knocking and just see how it's going. I know that some other communities have had some issues. I'll leave it at that for now, but for sure interested to see how it's going for those members that are living in our city and others. So thanks for bringing this forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Miller, you have a question, I believe.
Yes, thank you for bringing forward your issues. I didn't have the presentation on my screen, so I couldn't actually see it, but I listened to what you said, but I missed the beginning part. Which subdivision are you actually talking about?
The most concerning one is Dance Row Meadows, and my second concern is going to be Elan, whichever one is south of the tree nursery, as they're all zero lot lines, concerns for people coming in. And like we've had a few instances where we've lost jerry cans of fuel, not reporting it to the police because it's not big enough to raise an issue. Is that going to increase in the future? I don't know.
Okay, thank you. I didn't catch that in the beginning, so I appreciate you clarifying.
Thanks, Ashley.
Thank
Any
you.
further questions for our presenter? Seeing none, Ms. Weatherspoon, thank you for your time. Much appreciated. Thank you. I believe we have a second presenter this evening. Would you please join us at the table? Please introduce yourself, and when you're ready, you can begin, and we'll allow 5 minutes with some time for questions, okay?
Thank you. My name is Nola Anthony, and I'm an educational assistant and past school council president of Academy St. Andre. Thank you. Okay, good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Councils. I'm here to request some help from the city in response to the crime prevention through environmental design guidelines that you're developing. Our school has seen a drastic increase in vandalism, crime, and littering in our school park. Our school is looking for improved lighting that can help decrease crime and vandalism by 30% at our beloved park, as you guys advertised. So our little school, a little about our school and what we have already done. St. Andre is a P3 school, which means it's a private-public partnership, meaning that our school is maintained by a P3 contractor, which in this case is Ainsworth. Any modifications done to the school or school grounds must go through Ainsworth. The playground was funded for and paid by the Friends of St. Andre Fundraising Society in 2014. Recently, when I was on school council, they've looked into getting lights put in and around the playground to help deter loitering and vandalism, but have been given the cost of $16,000. A cost that is far too great for our school council to raise when we have student and school educational requests as well. Unfortunately, we can't do it all. So incidents of vandalism, graffiti, and mischief happen on a daily basis during and after school hours. We have regular vandalism at our park. We have garbage and littering, which includes matches found on the playground. We have vape pens and vials, as well as used condoms found all over the playground. Daily, students find inappropriate language written in black marker or spray paint all over the playground and its structures. Often our custodian needs to repair parts of the structures that have become unsafe. So such as missing bolts, cut ropes, cut swings, ripped and burned rubber flooring. This is all at a cost to the school and the school council. This spring, that's a missing bolt. Our buddy bench, which is a bench that's meant for students to sit on if they're looking for a buddy to ask them to play, was smashed and had to be, I don't know what just happened there, and had to be discarded. This issue has been going on since the playground was built in 2014, with more damage being done on a regular basis, costing more money from the school fundraising society. The school has been in contact with the RCMP regarding this issue and was told to improve the lighting and that they would do some patrols, which resulted in maybe a weekly patrol through the bus lane. There is a camera that faces the park, but it is currently in need of parts. And like everything else in the world, those parts are on back order right now. Even when we did have that camera working, most of the vandalism happens at night in the dark back corner of the playground, so it's too dark to pick anything out on the camera. As I said, we've been in contact with the RCMP and about this issue a few times, and the vandalism and littering seems to just be getting worse. As I'm sure you can appreciate and understand, it is a safety and health concern to our elementary students. This playground is one of the most used within Beaumont as it's centrally located in town. Unfortunately, its placement on the property provides shelter for criminal and indecent activity. When St. Andre's students are on the playground during school hours, there is always at least one supervisor on staff watching. So we're confident that all destruction happens after school hours. And we've seen it when the camera was working. This playground is used about 30 hours a week during the school year by the St. Andre students. The other 138 hours in a week is open to the public of Beaumont, who have chosen to misuse our space. For the past 4 years that I was on school council, we've paid approximately $1,000 every year for needed repairs to the park because of the public. Our biggest repair is usually the rubber flooring, which I can't seem to turn the thing, and it should be a picture coming up. There you go. The rubber mat flooring that gets ripped up or burned. This is the same rubber mat flooring that the town just put in the new park in Four Seasons last summer. That new park is well lit and in an open space, and the floor is still in amazing condition. I was just there the other day. This is ours in the picture, which was just repaired at the beginning of the year. We are now asking the city to help us by deterring the activity at our park by adding in lighting. As you can see, we have other costs as a school council in regards to this playground, such as the disc swing that was cut and still hasn't been replaced yet. So the $16,000 that we have been quoted is just too far out of our reach. We thank you for your consideration in this matter and hope that we can work together.
Thank you, Ms. Anthony. I appreciate your coming to council, and I didn't say welcome before, so welcome to council after the fact, but you know,
Thank you.
Appreciate that. At this time, we'll open up to questions from members of council this evening. Councillor Munckhof-Swain, followed by Councillor McCook, followed by Councillor Van Newkirk. And I'll see if Ash has any questions on the screen in a moment here. So Sam, you have the floor, please.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor and Nola. Thanks for coming in. This is always, we don't live close to this, but my kids bug me every day to go to this park because it is one of the best ones. I was wondering why. We were there on the weekend. I was wondering why that swing wasn't there. My little guy was disappointed. The other one tripped over because of the mat was burnt and all that sort of stuff. So I hear you. And yeah, it is extremely disappointing to hear that. So thanks for bringing this to our attention. As you are aware, we don't make budget decisions up here, and I know you're not asking for that today, and something that as council we potentially look at it as the budget process comes up. But yeah, I just really appreciate you bringing it to our attention. I did notice the buddy bench was gone, and it's just incredibly sad. So thanks for all the efforts that you and the committee have continued to do to make that as safe as possible, and hopefully we'll see where we could potentially help out. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. Thanks for coming in, and yeah, we'll see what we can do. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McCook, you have the floor. Kat, followed by Councillor Van Newkirk.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in. To reiterate, Councillor Munckhof-Swain, it's really disappointing to see the extent of the damage that the playground has had. Just in regards to the lighting options that you guys did look at, what kind of options?
We've been
Did you look
given
at-
two, either putting them on the building, or there is lighting that's out on the street in the bus lane. And instead of having one light that goes just to the bus lane, having two lights extend off of it,
Okay.
which still could possibly leave the back corner very dark, but at least it would give it something.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Van Newkirk. Steve, you have the floor, followed by Councillor Miller remotely.
Yeah, thank you for coming in and echo the statements that they've said there as well. What feedback did you get from the RCMP? Like what did they actually have to say? You brought the concerns to them. They said they do some more patrols. What was that feedback like?
They definitely have chased kids out of there late at night. That they do understand that it is a problem, and basically told us that they would even need better lighting in order to help them as they're doing patrols. So we're trying, but.
When was the last time that people have got in touch with the RCMP, or was it a one and done, or is it a constant?
No,
flow?
It's been a few times, probably not since the beginning of this year have we gotten in touch with them, maybe the end of last year.
Gotcha. One of the things I would encourage is just keep putting it in, right? I know it's frustrating, but one of the things that's important is to keep flagging issues so that, the more attention it gets, the more it's on everyone's radar, right? So I would encourage that right off the hop. Secondly, what does the school board had to say regarding support for this? Ultimately it's.
So our school board doesn't have anything to do with playgrounds, especially because, as I said, this is a P3 school, so not necessarily owned by the school board. We did put in, like our principal put in a request for monies from the reserve fund, but was denied because there is 12 other schools in our district that needed money for educational purposes as opposed to just lighting a playground. So it's definitely not as high on their radar as opposed to educational resources that are needed within the district.
Yeah, for sure. I get it. Again, I would continue pressing there as well, right? So,
Yep.
It's a shared response to a community problem is probably a desired outcome from my stance. So.
We have even within just getting things like the flooring and stuff replaced, and we have not gotten any response from them. It's always usually just us as the school and the fundraising society that has to do it all.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for coming in. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. With that, I'll move to Councillor Ashley Miller, she's remotely. Ashley, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Nola, for coming in and having the courage to bring this in front of council. I know it's not the easiest thing to do, so I appreciate you coming and taking the time to bring it forward to everybody. You obviously know I've heard your concerns as well, and we've been in talks I wanted to kind of hear what the other counselors had to say, because it's important that everybody understands that this is, it's really discouraging to know that children are going to school every day and having to see and read those kinds of things, or not being able to participate on certain structures because they're broken. I do have to agree, though, that it is a shared responsibility between whether that be the school board. I know the RCMP has been involved, and I think Jay Melvin is on the call, so I'm not sure if he can chime in a little bit to what exactly we would need in excess to help this issue, as opposed to just lighting, because I'm not so convinced that just lighting is going to solve the problem. Maybe it is, but I don't know the exact, statistics behind adding lighting. I do know that it seems to be a hot spot because it's quite hidden, out of the way. I also think it's concerning that the camera that is currently there is not working. And I think that will play into, maybe there being less activity if people know that they are in fact being recorded. So there's a few factors I think that come into play when it comes to the actual cost of the lighting. Once again, I think it's a shared effort. And I think we have, as a council, need to see what that looks like, discuss what that actually looks like. But if I can, and I'm not sure, Mayor, if I can, so correct me if I'm wrong, just ask Mr. Melvin if he can speak to a little bit more of this issue, because I know he has been involved in correspondence with Miss Antony. So I'm not sure if that's allowed.
I believe it would be all right if we have administration provide some feedback. Is that possible? Ms. Winter or Ms. O'Neill? Oh, sorry, I had the wrong button there.
Mr.
Ms.
Mayor,
Virgia.
thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Normally what we would do is have a councillor inquiry. So perhaps we could draft one for Councillor Miller, and that way administration has a little bit of time to get the accurate information back to council.
Okay, we'll do that during the, later on this evening during the council inquiries.
Absolutely. We can work with Councillor Miller if that's okay offline and make sure we get that right.
Councillor, okay with that?
That would be okay. And I guess one more thing, Miss Antony, if you have any insight as to, have you heard if this is, maybe an ongoing issue with other parks in the community as well? Do you have any background information on that? And is it typically, when it comes to the funding for the repairs, is it typically all through fundraising through the school council? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, we when we built the playground, we had some leftover funds that were used to maintain it. We are now down to about $5,000, which will probably only last us another couple years with the $1,000 that we're doing every year. This year, with more damage being done to the swings and stuff, that's going to cost us even more than it has in the past. So we are going to have to start fundraising strictly again for the park if we need lighting and stuff like that, which then causes problems when we also have to fundraise for things like iPads or computers or things that the school also needs.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. I appreciate you coming in. Thank you so much for answering my questions.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Before we go to round two from questions, is there round one for you, Steve, or round two? Okay, nobody else. Steve, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. And just wondering if you might leave your contact information with administration in case they need to get a hold of you about something or
Yep.
whatnot. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate that. Ms. Anthony, thank you for your coming this evening. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
So no further questions. We'll work on a councillor inquiry with Councillor Miller later on this evening. And with that, we will conclude open forum. Thank you, council, and to our presenters this evening. Next on our agenda is the registered presentations, which I believe is a 2021 annual library report. Ms. Winton.
No, it's so exciting.
Yes, welcome back to council.
Second time.
It is already second time. So welcome back to council. And we look forward to your annual report from the library. Please proceed.
Right. Well, thank you so much for having me, Mayor and Council and Administration. I'm excited to be here today to present our 2021 annual report. So you have a print copy of the report in your council package. All right, I have to control this now. It's a lot of pressure. Rather than just rehash what's in that report, I wanted to give you a little bit more in-depth information into what we offer in each of our major service areas tonight. We'll also look at some highlights from 2021 in each of those areas. And then I also wanted to provide you guys with some key performance indicator data for each of those service areas. You're going to see, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, a few more charts and graphs from me than you're maybe used to. This is really based on questions that I've received from you guys in presentations and via email. I was hearing a real interest in seeing the data that informs some of the decisions we make at the library. I also love data, so I thought this would be a great chance for me to take a moment to introduce you to some of the measures, the inputs and the outputs that we're using to make our decisions, and to walk you through some of the trends and the impacts and bounce back from COVID that we're seeing through the numbers. So I've got about 10 minutes to do this. Strap in, we're gonna get through it quickly, hopefully. So I'm gonna start by talking a bit about our library programs. This slide gives you an overview of what a year of programming looks like at the library. And we typically break our programming into 3 major buckets, and those are represented in colors here. So in the light blue, we have our regularly scheduled programs. So these are programs that run all year long, either weekly or monthly, depending on what the program is. This is really the core of the numbers that you're going to see. This is most of what we do is this regularly scheduled programming, even though it doesn't look quite that big on the slide. The next bubble that we have, the next group is in navy here. That's our special events and workshops. So these are one-off events that we schedule year to year. This is what we did in 2021, but it typically changes a little bit year to year depending on what our priorities are and the needs that we're seeing. And then the final programming bucket that we have is in green here, and these are our hosted community group programs. So these are programs that are run regularly on a weekly or monthly basis. They are primarily run by the community groups themselves, but we provide the space for them, we offer support, and we offer promotion for them. So that's kind of what programming looks like in a year. Some of our highlights from 2021, I think the obvious and biggest one last year was definitely BB the Biblio bike. We have you guys to thank for that. You guys provided capital funds for us to purchase the bike. And we spent the summer riding around to parks in Beaumont from June to August, reading stories, doing crafts, playing games. We had an absolute blast. And we're at it again this year. So if you are interested, check out our website for our schedule and give us a wave if you see us zipping around town in the bike. Other program highlights from 2021 included the creation of our community mural. This was made possible by a grant from Alberta Culture and Status of Women. And we asked community members to decorate small tiles. We ran some programs around it, and you could also just come in and pick one up and send it in to us. And then we had those assembled into a mosaic mural that hangs in our children's section. So it's really neat. Come by and check it out. The kids really love looking at each of the individual little pictures within the whole. We also held our second annual citywide scavenger hunt. These span about 2 months in the spring, and each year we choose a book to read along with the community, and then you can tune in weekly for challenges on Facebook and clues to secret talismans hidden all over the city, and every time you find one, you get to enter to win our grand prize. So really fun. We just finished our 3rd one in 2022. They're quite a hit. And then finally, we rounded out the year of programming with our first writers contest, and we were so honored to have Mayor Daniluk there to present the prizes to our winners. So if we take a look at some of our programming numbers, 2 of our main KPIs that we look at, key performance indicators, are number of programs and total participants in our programs. This is the last 5 years of programming for us, and you can see an obvious dip happening there in 2020 in the number of programs. I also just want to explain why you see such a jump up in the program attendance in 2020. It's a little bit of an anomaly, and the reason for that is that in 2020, we were given special permissions by publishers to record their material in pre-recorded videos that we were allowed to post and have available for the public to watch all through the year. And we were instructed to count views on those videos as participations in our programs. In 2021, publishers were not feeling quite as generous anymore, and they didn't give us those permissions. So we were back to live programming only, which meant only live participants. So we went from sometimes seeing, hundreds of views on those pre-recorded programs in a year to only being able to have, 20 people in a live program at a time. So that's that dip in the number of participants, but we are seeing that bounce back in the number of programs that we're offering, and we're coming back to those participant levels that we had pre-pandemic, and we're continuing to see this trend into 2022. So the next service area I wanted to look at was our collections. I think this is really what people think about when they think about the library. They're thinking about the books on the shelves. And when you walk into the library, we divide most of our collections by age. So you'll find our early literacy collections, our school-age collections, our young adult collections, and our adult collections. And within each of these categories in the print material, you're going to find collections in both English and French. In terms of what's happening in our collection numbers, this is kind of what things look like. Our collection size has been sort of stable, or you might say stagnant, from about 2017 to 2020. And then you see quite a bit of a drop off in our collection size in 2021. And the reason for that is that we actually did a lot of work on our collection in 2021. So an important part of maintaining an excellent library collection is deselecting titles. So you have to go through regularly and pull out the stuff that's not circulating, the stuff that's not current anymore, the stuff that's just looking really grubby. The problem with deselecting is you have to have the collection budget to replace those materials. And we just weren't doing the spending that we needed to do on our collection. And so we were compensating for not having collection dollars by not really deselecting as much as we should have. And in 2021, we really took a change in direction, and we decided we would rather have a smaller, really excellent collection than a much larger, maybe less good collection. So we are now at the end of 2021 and into 2022 feeling very confident that the material you're going to see on our shelves, it's current, it's in excellent condition, and it's circulating really well. The other line that you're seeing on that graph there is the Government of Alberta best practices for collection size. So these are numbers that the government says, based on population size, this is the number of items you should have in your local public library. We are well below where we're supposed to be. We do have plans to start bringing us back up to that number. We're confident that within our current space, with some additional shelving and some more spending on collections, we can get up to about 35,000 items comfortably. And so in that next graph there, collection spending, you're seeing that our collection spending is starting to grow upwards. The trend continues in 2022, and it will continue again in our 2023 budget. So that's a little bit of information on the size of our collection, but how much material are people actually taking out of the library? So that's what this graph is showing you, and you can really clearly see the impact of the pandemic here. In 2020, our physical borrowing took a total nosedive because there were large periods there where we just couldn't lend anything yet. We did figure out curbside lending, and we saw a bit of a bounce back in 2020. And then in 2021, despite the fact that we were closed to the public for almost 5 months, we were close to pre-pandemic circulation for 2021. And the numbers are looking the same. They're trending upwards in 2022. That other green line there is our virtual borrowing. So this is electronic resources. And so in 2020, to compensate for the fact that you couldn't get the physical collections, we saw a big hike up in those virtual borrowing numbers. So the final service I want to talk about is library space. We offer free, safe, welcoming space, and libraries are really one of the only places people can come and just be without needing to spend money. In 2021, we really focused on revitalizing our children's area. So we reorganized our shelving. We took the little space that we had. We brought in different furniture. We put in toys and manipulatives. We tried to make that as welcoming a space as we could. And I feel like I can't overstate the impact we've seen on this. That children's area is so highly used. And I think it really speaks to a need in the Beaumont community. We have so many young families, and this is one of the only spaces where you can come and just be with your kids and let them hang out and sit there and have a coffee. So really proud of the work we did there, and we're excited to keep expanding what we have in that space. You guys have already had a whole presentation on library expansion, so I'm not going to belabor the point here, but I would be remiss if I didn't once again quickly point out that we're about half the size we should be and we need a little more space. And we are also I just wanted to say that we're just so excited and proud of the work we did with our community on the design work for an expansion and renovation. We got to talk to the community, we got to hear what they want and what they need, and really start thinking about how to design flexible spaces that are going to meet all of those needs. So it was just a great opportunity for us to engage. When we look at our key performance indicators for space, really what we're looking at is visit statistics. Again, really not surprisingly, we had a huge crash in 2020 and 2021 when our library building was closed for huge chunks of the year. What is exciting and what I can report is that we took a big step forward in how we track space use in 2022. So we now have an installed people counter that gives us real-time counts of exactly how many people are coming in and out of the library at any given time and day. In previous years, we were basing this on estimates. So we're just going to have better data moving forward. I'm really excited about that. And what I can tell you about the bounce back in visits is that since installing that, which happened about a month and a half ago, we're averaging about 1,200 visits to the library a week. So we're anticipating, based on that, if that trend continues, that we're going to probably have between 50 and 60,000 visits in 2022. And that's really solid data. So again, we're seeing that bounce back from the pandemic. So that's all I have for you today. Did I do it in 10 minutes? How did I do? Almost? Close. Excellent. I hope that seeing some of those numbers was helpful to you guys. I have lots more numbers, so if you have lingering questions, I am sure I have an Excel sheet for you that could answer them. Happy to answer any questions that you guys have for me today.
Thank you, Ms. Winton. Always a pleasure having you at council.
Yeah.
Your enthusiasm for the library is very evident, and we do appreciate your leadership of the library. And thank you for your report. Council, this time open up to questions from council to Ms. Winton regarding the library annual report. I'll start with Councillor Van Nieuwkerk, followed by Councillor Barnhart. Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. A quick trip down memory lane first. First day on the job, came and visited council. Second or third, darn near shut down the library. So I remember that very well. One of the numbers that you didn't talk about, and monetarily it's kind of inconsequential, but just to the community looking to room rentals. What does that look like? Is there capacity for the community to rent more of the room space from you? What does that look like? Because often people are looking for spots to go, and I suggest that. I just don't know if that's coming through. What's that look like?
Yeah, I mean, our ability to take room rentals is pretty limited right now. The way that we do things, we have one program room, and that's really the only room that we have. We have some study rooms, but they're meant to be open to the public, and they're not equipped to handle more than maybe 5 people max. And then we have the main library space, which we typically can't rent out. So really the program room is your only option. And right now we're so busy with programs ourselves, our own programs, and we do prioritize those that, we do what we can to rent our room when we can, and occasionally we will manage to get a rental snuck in there between our programs, but we just don't have the space right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's fair, and that's kind of the answer I expected. I just wanted to check in on that. So
yes,
thank you.
But in a new space, we plan lots of rooms with lots of rental potential.
Oh, and you'd have outdoor activity space as well.
That's right.
I've seen it. Yeah. Thank you.
Nice curveball.
Yeah,
I got that.
That's
Very
right.
Good. Councillor Barnhart, Kathy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. And if it hadn't gone there, I would have going there. I want to make sure you get that curveball and you can hit a home run. So again, with the expansion, and I know you're trying to be very respectful and not just keep harping on what you really need, but you really do. We really need space. Could you, I say succinctly, but it doesn't have to be succinct. If you need to take time, take the time. Could you tell us what we're missing out on? What is the impact of not having the space that you talk about? Because it's not just about people coming in and taking books out, because they can do that online, but what else are we missing by not having that space?
I mean, I could give you a wonderful full example if I went away and thought about it, but in the moment, what I would say is, the library's mission is about connecting community members. And like I said in this presentation, one of the things that the library offers that is very unique is that we offer free gathering space. There are not a lot of places, I would say that there aren't any places that you can just go and be. You don't have to buy anything. It's just a place to gather. And right now, in the limited space that we have, it's not just that we can't put more books in it, it's that we don't have the space for people to come and be. We see that children's area full to the brim lots of days. There's no room for other people. We see mothers sort of walk in and go, oh, I guess I'll find somewhere else, because it is a tiny space. So we're missing out on those opportunities for connection. We're missing out on opportunities for community groups to come meet in the space. We're missing opportunities to facilitate connections between different groups. If we had more space, we could do that. We're missing opportunities to run more than one program at the same time, hold events in that space, really build those connections and be the community hub that we want to be at the library.
One other dream that I know was talked about at one point, if I may, Mayor, you mentioned women coming with their babies or dads as well, having a coffee. So are you offering that now? Because I know at one point we talked about the idea of a social enterprise or a cafe or something else that might be part and parcel of a place where people can go and bump up against each other.
Yeah, I will say it's been thrown around a little bit. Right now in our current space, we don't have the space to put in much more than, say a little rolly cart with a Keurig on it. Certainly libraries have done that. Within our budget and looking at our strategic plan, is that our top priority? Some libraries have done it better and worse success. So I'm not convinced that it's the answer to the problem right now. Could we do it? Yeah, it would be about, can we fund it? Because there are ongoing costs to that, and then staffing costs to keep it stocked and in good condition and all that stuff.
It's still on the table, but it's
not
on
the table.
List,
yeah.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Excellent.
Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor. Any other comments or questions from council regarding our presentation this evening? No. Again, Ms. Winton, thank you for coming. Your enthusiasm is always welcome at council, and the library is a big key part of our community. And I think people sometimes forget the community aspect of a library. People think it's just books. It's not. Never has been, but I think sometimes that's the connotation. I think you're doing a very good job of raising the profile of the library, and we much appreciate that. Having that, thank you for your presentation this evening.
Thanks so
Good
much.
evening. All right, council, that brings us to our next part of our agenda this evening, which is now 7 business items. 7A. School pilot project, Beaumont Sport and Recreation Center passes. I believe, Mr. Suter, you are presenter this evening on this topic? No, I thought it wasn't from my notes. I stand corrected. Go ahead. Oh, hey, Amanda, how are you?
I'm really good, thank you.
Great, you have the floor.
Perfect. Good evening, your worship and members of council. This evening, I have a report on the school pilot project for the Beaumont Sport and Recreation Center passes. This report provides options and impacts of providing membership passes to Beaumont schools for accessing the Beaumont Sport and Recreation Center. Beaumont administration can facilitate a program that provides passes to each school library. The library can manage borrowing of passes using a system they currently have in place for borrowing books. Passes would allow for drop-in activities at the pool, field house, arena, fitness center, and the gymnasium. Minimum liabilities are expected. The program would fall under our general practice of drop-in that do not require a signed waiver. Risk of injury or damage would be no different than our regular drop-in programs. Challenges we foresee with this program are children under the age of 8 years old. They would require an adult or someone over the age of 14 years of age to supervise them. This may create barriers to the program. For age restrictions, children aged 8 years and older can visit and use the BSRC without an adult. All fitness center users must be 14 years of age or older to be permitted in the fitness center independently. Youth aged 12 and 13 must complete a youth fitness center orientation and be accompanied by a parent or guardian to use the fitness center. Due to the possible barriers of this program around age restrictions, administration is recommending that we provide 2 family passes to each school. Children and youth can borrow the passes and their immediate family can attend the recreation center with them. Financial implications would be minimal. Reprinting passes, administration's time to manage the lost passes. Administration is recommending council implement this pilot project in accordance with the parameters set out in this report. Those parameters would be to provide 2 family passes to each school in Beaumont, allow the school to determine the process of borrowing the passes that works best for them, and evaluate this program after 1 year to determine next steps. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Cuthbert. Appreciate that very much. At this point, open up to questions from members of council, starting with Councillor McCook. Kat, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thanks for the report. I definitely also appreciate that you guys spoke to the school boards and received some input from them as well. That's beneficial to have on this report. I also just want to acknowledge Stephanie, who's a resident of Beaumont and works at one of the schools, as she had brought this idea forward. I agree with evaluating the program as well, as it's a pilot program to determine its success and usage. In regards to that, will Beaumont be working with the schools at all to kind of determine usage and who's keeping track? Will it be the schools? Will it be the city? Who will that kind of fall on?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And I think we'll work through some of those logistics in the fall. I think it would be great to try and track some data through the schools, but we will, through our recreation software, be able to track how many times those passes are actually used in the center. So we will be able to track that data.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I think working with the schools as well would be good, just to even have a little bit of the demographic type data. Is it more the younger kids and the younger families that are using it, or is it some of the older kids as well? I think some of that to come back would be really beneficial. But otherwise, I brought this forward, so I think it's a great program, and I think we should give it a try. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And when it comes time to come back to you, I will be looking forward to your making a motion in this respect once we had a chance to discuss it all as council members. So that with that, Councillor Munckhof-Swain, Sam, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks, Councillor McCook, for raising this here. I've had more people reach out to me on this particular issue than anything else over the last couple of months. So yeah, full support in this. I really appreciate the point in here in this report where we want to allow the schools to determine the process for borrowing the passes. And the last thing we want to do is dictate that. So I'll keep it short and brief and just say I fully support this. And thanks to Catherine and the residents who have really pushed this. This is a great opportunity.
Thanks, Councillor. Seeing no further requests. Oh, hang on. Councillor Barnhart, Kathy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few little details. I'm in support of this as well. But Ms. Cuthbert, I was just wondering, we have other programs where we support families that have income challenges and making this available. I guess I'm trying to get my head around why do we have different ways of delivering that, and maybe you could speak to the benefits of using it this way and having it through the school, just so I can get my head around that.
Sure. So yeah, we do have some other programs. So we have a subsidy program where there's an application process where people can apply and then they would have access to a certain amount of funds to use towards Beaumont programming. They could use that to drop in services as well. So there's definitely some similarities. I believe the request to look at these passes would be an opportunity for them to come try and use the facility for the first time, to have access to that instead of going through a formal process of an application.
So there wouldn't be an application process. It's basically the schools can choose who they give them to. 2 per school, is that correct?
That's what I'm recommending, yes.
You're recommending that. And that's how many schools now? I've lost count. How many schools are we?
I don't have that off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
It's not just me. I thought I was, I should know that number off the top, but I know there's quite a few. And I guess the other question I would have is, in terms of measuring the progress, it's a pilot project. It always makes me wonder, sometimes we don't use that pilot project sometimes as a way of making a decision before we're making a final decision. But what are the measurements that we would be using to determine if it's successful or not?
I think we would want to just make sure that the program is being used. I don't really know other measures that we would check into at this point or that we would track. We think we would want to bring that data back to council to make a decision if this is successful. If it's not, maybe there's some other ideas or feedback we can get from a school that may work a little bit better, whether it's just that particular system or if the program just really isn't popular.
Sorry, that was my last question. Is it both school boards we're talking, all three school boards we're dealing with here? Okay.
Yes, we were going to go through all 3 school boards, correct?
Fine, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Miller, do you have a question remotely?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Cuthbert. Regarding the no application process and two passes per school, how are those going to be determined again?
Well, our thought was to be similar as you would be borrowing books from the library. However, we do want to make sure that the schools have the chance to determine how those passes are lent out and what that process looks like. We don't want to lay out a process that's not going to work for the school. So I think we'll probably have to work with individual schools. Again, our thought was around similar to a system where you would borrow books from a library. However, the school might have something that works a little bit better.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any further questions for our presenter? Before we go to ask Councillor McCook to move the recommendation, please, if you so choose. Kat, you have the floor.
Thank you. I move that administration implement the Beaumont School and Rec Passes pilot project in accordance with the parameters set out in the July 12th, 2022 report.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion? I have one quick comment to make. Oh, go ahead, please.
I was just going to make a comment to Councillor Barnhart. I think a little bit of the difference between this and some of the other programming that we have is potentially even just a barrier to service, like some of the things you have to apply and there's paperwork involved and everything, where this, the kids can easily sign it out at school. And so just one less barrier to kind of jump through.
Thank you. Thank you. One comment is this is a good example of residents reaching out to a council member, bringing it to administration, going through the process and determining if it's good or bad policy to make a change. And this is a great example of doing exactly that. I'm thrilled to support your motion when I call for the question. So having said that, seeing no further questions on the motion, I'll ask council to vote, please. Councillor Miller.
In favor, Mayor.
Thank you. That carries unanimously. Thank you, council. Appreciate that. And it is a great project. Looking forward to getting it going. Next on our agenda is 7B, recreation facility fees for assured income for severely handicapped. I believe Ms. Cuthbert, or now it's going to be Paul's. My notes are correct on this one. Mr. Suter.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's my turn. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This report is regarding facility fees for the recreation facility fees for assured income for the severely handicapped, otherwise known as AISH, A-I-S-H. The report is to provide council with information on the feasibility of recreation facility fees being waived for individuals that are in that program, the AISH program. Recommendation the administration has is that the current recreation inclusion program be expanded to provide assured income for the severely handicapped AISH clients who are residents of Beaumont with free access to applicable programs and amenities effective January 1, 2023. And then administration provide a review of the program expansion after 1 year and report to council on the impacts of that expansion. A little bit of background. Recent AISH figures indicate that there are 42 active clients in Beaumont who list an address in Beaumont. Beyond this number, we are unable to determine if there's any other folks using that program currently. Additionally, there's no ability to present, or at present, sorry, to determine what programs and amenities these clients may use if offered this opportunity. Beaumont currently has a recreation inclusion program that provides subsidies to individuals or families that demonstrate an inability to pay for programs that would contribute to their personal growth and community involvement. Over the last 3 years, this program was 30% prescribed at the maximum end. Beaumont annually budgets $30,000 towards this program, and at its peak, $10,500 was prescribed in 2020. Currently, there's 3 members that have identified as being AISH recipients that are using this program. That is part of a declaration through the application process. They would have checked off that box. So that's the only reason we would know that. As part of the report, we looked at other municipalities just for a comparison's sake. Leduc, Edmonton, Spruce Grove, and Strathcona. And as you can see in the report, Council, there's a variety of ways that they're doing it, but when you kind of read through it, it's very similar to our inclusion program that we're running now. So administration recommends that if council supports removing fees for AISH clients, that this would just be an amendment, an expansion, if you will, to the current existing program rather than creating a separate program. We would simply advertise to that effect and see if there's any uptake on the program. It's difficult to say what that uptake would look like. We just know kind of the numbers that we know presently. And as far as the financial impact, there really wouldn't be anything. We budget $30,000 now. For example, if an AISH client were to receive a $630 adult membership, if all 42, for example, were to take that up, we'd be in the $27,000 range. So that would still be within our budget potentially. It just depends on the uptake. Again, that's why I would recommend it, that we look at it for a one-year pilot and see what the uptake is and see if it's working in this recommended format, and council could make a decision when the administration brings it back at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Suter. Questions from council for Mr. Suter's presentation on this topic? Any questions from council? Oh, Councilor Barnhart. Kathy, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Just one quick, I guess it's comment / question. So the existing program right now would allow someone who is on AISH to qualify. They don't necessarily have to tell us that they are AISH. They would apply and they would be eligible.
Through the mayor to Councilor Barnhart, yes, they have to justify the income as to why they'd be applying through the application process, and AISH is a part of that income. But this subsidy only goes $150, so it doesn't get too far currently. So this, if an AISH client were to participate, if we amended this would fully fund.
So they don't have to reapply again and go through a process. They basically, if you're receiving AISH, you're automatically receiving this.
I think we would apply annually for the pass if that was the case.
But they don't have to reapply in terms of, they don't have to have their income reviewed.
No, thank you.
So I guess the question I'm getting at is, are there other forms of low income support? I know there are from the provincial government, as well as even childcare subsidy, where the similar income testing or means testing happens. Are people who apply with that access, are they automatically given as well, or do they have to reapply? I don't know if I said that correctly. I think I bumbled that a little bit, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's an annual program, so they would reapply every year if they're interested in participating in a program or looking for a $150 subsidy to pass at the fitness center, for example.
Everyone reapplies, I
Yes.
get that, but
Yes.
do they have to go through an income test or a means test?
Yes, they still have to fill out the application process, which would justify whether they meet the threshold, if they're in excess of the income or not.
So what this motion does is it removes a barrier for the AISH clients, but it doesn't remove barriers for other people who are also receiving some form of assistance.
Correct.
Is that something that you could even consider doing, or is there a reason why that wouldn't work?
Well, administration was asked to provide a report specifically to AISH clients to access for free. So that's what we did. To expand it beyond that, we'd have to look at that in another report if we were going to expand this further.
Just for the sake of giving you a little bit of background on that, I know that in other cities that is done. So we wouldn't be unique in doing that. So Mayor, I'm leaning towards this being broader than AISH. And I believe it would be essentially the same holds true. People that are not aware of it, it could be advertised in this way. It might increase the uptake, because I think 1/3 of the uptake, there's obviously more people who could take advantage of this if we could make it more well-known and available. So anyone who is currently receiving provincial supports for income would not have to go through a whole other review of their income. They would demonstrate that they're receiving those supports and they would receive. So I'd like to see it expand beyond AISH, and I'm not opposed to AISH, but I just think it's limiting.
No, I understand that. So let me get to your comment in one quick way. So I'm very pleased. A couple of residents brought this to my attention. One of them's in the audience this evening. Thank you very much. Again, another example, going through the process and understand the pros and cons of a policy change and making the right choice. My first thought was asking for September 1 rather than January 1. However, should the motion pass this evening, this plan can go into effect for January 1. So giving us enough time to maybe have a second review based on your suggestion of expanding it to just outside the H program as well, which would be part of our budget deliberations in the fall to be effective January 1 as well. So I think what you're saying, and I agree with, I would prefer to have this motion pass this evening if council chooses to do so. I'm very open to your suggestion of a second report or a second review by administration to expand it beyond the H program. So that's how I'd like to proceed personally. If council sees otherwise, that's fine, but I'd like to see the motion go forward. And I'm open to your suggestion of a secondary report to maybe expand to a larger context. But it wouldn't take away from this being passed for January 1 in that sense.
I'm just wondering if this in any way precludes it. If I vote in favor of this, do I need a secondary motion, or
No,
how do
it
I
shouldn't
get the
preclude
other
it.
information to come back?
No, it shouldn't preclude it because it'd be a new notice of motion from yourself to look at expanding this same idea beyond the H program, right?
So I would require another notice of motion rather
Yes, I believe you
than
would.
tagging it onto this particular.
And having said that, I'll rely on our clerk extraordinaire, Ms. Winter, to make sure I said the right thing there in terms of procedure. Ms. Winter?
Thank you, Mayor. I hear what you're saying, that you want this motion to have council vote on this motion this evening, so it's not being held up.
I would prefer, sorry.
What I would
prefer.
suggest is that Councillor Barnhart can do a subsequent motion directing administration to prepare a report looking at other residents with low income.
Could I do that this evening?
Yes.
That's what I prefer,
Yeah, that's what I was point.
rather than it going back.
We're of the same mind. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. Discussion, council, any further discussion or question on the motion? I meant the motion on the presentation, Mr. Suter. Seeing none, I'll take liberty, if I could, I'll take my liberty to make the recommendation myself, if I could see it on the screen, please. And then I'll ask council to discuss the motion when it's ready. Ms. Winter? Oh, sorry. Thank you. I move that the current recreation inclusion program be expanded to provide assured income for the severely handicapped aged clients who are residents of Beaumont with free access to applicable programs and amenities effective January 1, 2023. And administration provide a review of the program expansion after 1 year, report to council on the impacts of the expansion. With that, I'll call for discussion on the motion. Councillor Tessier, Renee, you have the floor.
Thanks, Mayor. And yeah, thanks for bringing it forward. I guess some of these policies we look at, you don't see them for a while. So it's good that the resident brought forward, because 20% is nothing. Like really $150 on a pass that's tough to buy a pass when you're on a limited income. And I like the end of it too, that we're going to see the impacts of the expansion. Does it take up the whole $30,000 of cost? And I don't know if this is possible, but I like the data. So, you know, sometimes people get passes and they just get it, but they don't actually use it ever. So they get the pass and it's used once, but technically we've made it up to $30,000, but they actually didn't use the facilities. I don't know if that's a thing we're going to track, but it's interesting because I know quite a few people that get one and they go 5 times a year. So anyway, I'm in support. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Tessier. I appreciate that. Are there any further discussion on the motion? Ashley, you have any questions? I can't see you're on the screen in front of me.
No, Mayor. Thanks for checking.
Thank you. With that, council, I will ask you to vote on the motion. Councillor Miller?
In favor?
Thank you. Council, that motion passed unanimously. Thank you, council. Appreciate the support on this issue. Yes, actually, Ms. Winter, should we make the motion from Councillor Barnhart now, or should we wait to later in this evening and under inquiries? Ms. Winter.
Thank you, Mayor. It's a subsequent motion to this motion, so we'll make it now, and I'm just putting it up here on the
Okay.
screen. Just give me one
Thank
second
you.
here.
Do you want to read it first yourself, Kathy, before you make it verbally? Make sure it sounds what you were anticipating. I'm sure it will. Oh, sorry, I gotta turn your mic on, don't I? There you go. Makes it easier.
Appreciate that, and I appreciate the help and the support of the administration in putting it up there. The only thing I would suggest differently is that supports for residents who are currently receiving provincial support for income.
Outside the age program.
That's right, because they're and the
That was the
reason
intent.
behind that is that they are already going through scrutiny to make sure they're eligible. Why should we have people have to do that again a second time?
We'll
So
tweak
it's
it for you.
not just low income residents, it's residents who are currently eligible for provincial supports. I think that's probably the language I'm looking for.
Provincial income support.
Provincial income supports.
Sorry, just helping you.
So that's the
wordsmith it.
proof that they show the administration, therefore it's not onerous for either us or for them.
Okay.
That's perfect. And I would take out low income residents in front of residents. I would just say residents currently eligible for provincial income supports. Thank you. Would you like me to read it again?
If you're comfortable with it now, we can, you can move it. When you're ready to read, you can move it.
I move that administration prepare a further report on expanding recreation supports for residents currently eligible for provincial income supports, and that the report be included as part of the upcoming budget process.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion. Do you wish to speak to your motion or just let other councillors
One thing
weigh
I
in?
would just add is that, and I think Councillor Tessier made a great point about keeping track of it. The information that we're gathering here in terms of how many people we are helping actually should and could be used for advocating to the provincial government. I mean, we are in fact doing what our provincial income tax is supposed to be doing, is moving wealth around so that it supports all of the people and provides equity. And so I think, again, we are doing that to help our residents, but I think we also should keep track of it so that we can use it to the advantage of receiving further supports for people in our community.
Thank you. Ms. Boucher, you wish to speak on this?
Just a minor technicality for clarity's sake. Could we say currently receiving? Because currently eligible might open up a bit of a can of worms in trying to determine the province eligibility standards.
Receiving, yes.
Yeah.
Councillor
Thank you.
Barnard,
It
okay
just
with
gives
that?
us a little bit of clarity.
Mhm. That was the intent. Thank you very much.
Do we have to reread the motion, Ms. Winter, or we're good just changing the word with Councillor Barnard's agreement?
I think we're okay, Mayor.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay.
For the discussion on the motion, Councillor Tessier. Renee, you have the floor.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Barnhart. Just so we're all on the same page, we are going to track this information then for when that report comes back. Okay, perfect. Thanks. I'm good.
Thanks for clarifying that. Appreciate that. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, at this point, I'll ask council to vote on the motion before you. Councillor Miller?
In favor, Mayor?
Thank you. And that passed unanimously. Thank you, Councillor and Council for that. Appreciate. Next on our agenda, I believe, is now 7C, High School Football Home Game Event. Mr. Suter, are you also presenting this one? My notes said Paul again. All right, let's go. I believe we're going to Ms. Cuthbert. Amanda, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a report that provides options for the City of Beaumont to celebrate high school football's first home game. Beaumont's high school football will host their first home game on Thursday, September 15th, 2022. Game time is 2:00 p.m. till 4:00 p.m. This date changed from September 16th, 2022, which is a Friday, to September 15th, 2022, which is a Thursday, due to the Professional Development Day at the school. In conversations with Black Gold administration and the coach, the high school would like to invite the schools in Beaumont to attend to watch the football game. This could result in more than 2,000 attendees during the school hours. Additional attendance, family, friends, fans could result in another 1,000 people attending. The coach has requested that the after-game celebration take place close to the turf field and have no alcohol served. Administration has prepared 3 options for celebration along with this game. Option 1 includes pre-game speeches, local halftime entertainment, and community gathering and celebration outside the field with seating, food trucks, and music. This option would be $8,600. Option 2 adds some additional bleachers, some more entertainment and activities, and that cost is $11,500. Option 3 adds even more games and higher level entertainment, includes marketing, photography, and that is $32,000. If council wishes to proceed, administration recommends option 1 for $8,600. The funding source, the nature of this event does align with council's public relations budget. Option 1 could be absorbed through this budget cost center, but will mean that there is less funds available for supporting other public relation activities initiated by council in the latter half of the year. Council could also opt to fund this event from municipal reserves. However, administration does not recommend this funding source since the nature of the event does not align with the intended purpose of the reserve. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Cuthbert. I appreciate that very much. I appreciate the reports and its detail and providing us options, much appreciated. This was something I had brought to council a while ago, and I do appreciate you going to Black Gold and getting feedback from them on this idea as well. When I first proposed the idea, I was suggesting it be at the rec center parking lot, which is well away from the high school, which would allow for a community group to do a beer garden if they wanted to. With the event being closed at Black Gold, of course, no beer garden would be appropriate with that. So I'm glad it's in the report as well. With that, open up to questions from council before I have a couple of comments myself. Again, thank you. Councilor Tessier, you have the floor, followed by Councilor Munckhof-Swain.
Thank you, Mayor. Question on the porta potty and hand washing station. So if this is on during school hours, can we use the school washrooms is the first one. And the second one, are we not putting or having porta potties existing there that will be available for that event? Because that cost just is one of the more expensive ones at $5,489.
Through your worship to Council Tessier, yes, it is a very a large expense for an event like this. We did calculate in some of the porta potties that are on site already, as well as some sinks that are on site there in the concession. We did not approach a school asking for the school to be open for washrooms and hand washing, things like that. This is a school day, so classes is in session. At this point in time, and talking to the coach of what that looked like, not all schools will be released to go to this game. So there may be classes that are in session and school in. So I did not ask, and we will definitely ask that in the fall, if the school can be open to use those facilities. But it just might be important to know that school is in. So I'm not sure we'll be able to have the public go in and out of the school. The other thing I can say about the porta potties is once we get closer to the planning, of course, in September, when everyone's back in school, once we get an idea of the better numbers, I think 3,000 is the maximum, the high end of the attendees that we'll have. If we find out that there's only going to be 1,500 people attending or even less, we'll be able to cut that amount down. So that number could go down. AHS actually sets out the number of porta potties and hand washing stations you need to have when you host an event. So we did have to go on the maximum, and yes, you are correct. It is a very high number.
Perfect. Appreciate that whole explanation. That's great. Yeah, I don't know where I sit on it. It seems a little bit higher than I was comfortable with, but I'll see what everyone else has to say.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Councilor Munckhof-Swain, followed by Councilor Van Newkirk. Sam, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. A couple of comments. First off, for all the options, I'd like you to consider adding some Indigenous cultural component to that, whether it be a blessing or something to kick that off. And in the budget, adding a line item for an honorarium in that, given the fact that we are here on Treaty 6 in the homeland of the Métis. I think it'd be important to start that off in a positive way. So I'll leave that there for your thought. But when I looked at this, my concern is just around the game time, like 2 to 4. Not many folks are going to be able to get to that. So while I'd like this to be a large event, the more activity is going to be after the fact when folks are done school and that sort of thing. So with that, in order to attract the families that we want, and maybe this is just me thinking about my little guy who just loves the inflatables, but I would go for option 1 and maybe throw over the inflatables that we have in option 2 there. I don't think we need the additional bleachers an additional 230 people. I just don't know if we're going to get those for a 2 p.m. game. So those are just my two comments. I would go with option one, but just have some inflatables and make it a big community celebration that evening, and add the Indigenous piece. So I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. I do agree with the Indigenous piece, maybe having a schmudging. I think if it pronounced that properly, I think would be appropriate. We'll discuss that down the road. I did speak to Beaumont Minor Football Association to see if they could arrange an exhibition game that evening. It is a high school game. They play at 2 o'clock. Wasn't exactly my ideal time for a Friday night football in Beaumont at 2 in the afternoon, but that's high school schedule, so we can't change that. But if we could have an exhibition game afterwards that evening, with people already around, milling around, it may extend the day that evening. So I do appreciate that. The inflatables for kids is always a good thing. So like maybe work out something, maybe find a outside sponsor to help us with that, which I've got some thoughts on that. But budget wise, I appreciate your comments. Councillor Van Newkirk, Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. Similar to Councillor Tessier's comments around the facilities, I think Ms. Cuthbert nailed it on the head. Is closer to, you kind of gauge the numbers and look at that AHS formula and dial up or down that. And I would expect that would need to happen. So that's a good thing. Just wondering what option there may be for groups within other groups within Beaumont to become involved in this as well. I recall other events where maybe a group has supported first aid requirements, or a group has supported maybe had a fire pit on site, or maybe there are groups that could welcome people to the community, or just different ways to include. So I don't know how much reach out we need to do, but there may be an opportunity to invite in if folks want to be part of something, and that probably could be done with a little resource, I would say, just to say, hey, we're doing this. Any groups in Beaumont want to be involved, get in hold of us. So just a quick idea that I don't think would add too much burden to the process. So that's my comment, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. Before we go to Councillor Barnhart, you may recall when I first brought this idea to council a while ago, I was expecting us to keep in the $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 range. I was expecting a large expenditure. If you take out porta potties in option one, we're in that $3,000 to $4,000 range, even a little less. So that's more my comfort zone too, honestly. But the porta potties could be more than I thought they were. Actually, more than I thought they were, if at 3,000 people, which I think is a high number as well. Ms. Cuthbert, I think you're correct on that. So that will come down. Councillor Barnhart, Kathy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I do know how difficult and how expensive these events are to set up. And I am just a bit concerned about how option 2 and option 3 are just increasing the cost quite a bit. Again, this is, if I'm correct, Mayor, one time only. This is because it's a new field, or is this something that is being contemplated on an annual basis, or what?
Just one time.
Just a one
Yeah,
time
it'll be the
because
first
it's the inaugural.
first
game.
high school football game in the history of Beaumont. So I thought it was worth a little celebration.
And if I
But
could,
not too big a celebration, but a celebration nonetheless.
No, I get that, and I appreciate and I understand why we're celebrating, and I agree with Councillor Munckhof-Swain about the involving our Indigenous partners. The financial implications have me a bit worried, because I'm looking at what the administration has included here, and basically it's the warning we're all well aware of, is that we can't spend money we don't have. And so it's suggesting that it could come out of the public relations budget. And I'm not aware of how much is left in that budget and what it would be spent on if it's not spent on this. So either yourself or Mr. Dowler could speak to that.
My understanding is it's council's minister of public relations as opposed to the
Right,
public relations.
I
for the
get that, but
community.
what would we have spent it on if we didn't spend it on this?
Okay. Perhaps Mr. Dowler can enlighten us on that possibly. Mr. Dowler, if you're available.
I'll, excuse me, try my best to provide a little bit of context in terms of the budget itself. The overall budget for council promotion is $26,900. Right now, approximately unspent in that budget is about $21,900. There are a couple of events still outstanding that would typically go through this budget, one of which is the Mayor's Breakfast, and then a second event potentially is a Mayor's Town Hall. A second Mayor's Town Hall that would happen in the fall. And so those are the only other events that would typically go through that budget. So considering some estimates around those two things in particular, administration felt that there would be room for the $8,000 option one in the report, still to be funded through the remaining $21,000 that's in that budget.
I do have trouble hearing you when you're not like right on the mic, but I think I heard you say you think the 8,001 is definitely doable, but anything over that, something else would have to be eliminated from our plan. Did I hear correctly?
That's correct, Councillor Barnhart. Based on our review of what's remaining in the budget and some estimates on what we know is outstanding for events that typically take place and are charged to that budget, we believe the $8,000 option that's presented in the report could be funded from the remaining $21,000.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dollar. And that was my sense of it as well, given past expenses and what we've had in the budget. But it's not that I don't think a great celebration would be great to have, but I do think we need to make sure that we don't overspend the budget. So
You asked a
that's
very
kinda where
prudent, you asked a very prudent question, and I'm glad you asked it, and I think you have a satisfactory answer. Thank you. 2,000 people throwing cabbages? I don't know if that's such a good idea. Appreciate that. Any further comments or questions from council from the presenter? Seeing none? Thank you. I will then move my own motion if I could on the recommendation when it comes up on the screen. Oh, sorry, Ms. Winter, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I was hearing a little kind of discussion going on with regards potentially removing some of the items that were in option one. So I just wanted to know if you wanted to deal with that prior to moving the motion, or do you just want to go ahead and move the motion as is?
I think my interpretation of the discussion was option one as is, possibly add inflatables at a later time. We can find a sponsor for that. I didn't see anything except potentially less people, meaning less spending on porta potties. So I think motion option one is fine the way it is, unless I'm read the room wrong.
Okay.
I think we're okay. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'll work on a sponsor for that idea. I think kids will get a kick out of that. All right, I will move that option one is set out in the July 12, 2022 report. First football home game event be approved, and that funding amount of $8,600 from the 2022 Council Public Relations budget be allocated to fund this event. Council discussion on the motion. Seeing none, council, I'll ask you to vote. Councillor Miller.
In favor, Mayor.
Thank you. And that motion passes unanimously. Thank you, council. Appreciate that. It is 7:30. We had it for 90 minutes. We usually take about a 5-minute break normally here. So I'm going to request a 5-minute break. We'll come back at 7:35. And we'll come back to item 7D on our agenda, addressing disputes between neighbors, snow, ice, and other.